Hi, my name is Mark Speckman. I'm the head football coach at Willamette University in Salem, Oregon. We're a Division III school playing the Northwest Conference. I'm going to talk today about our fly offense and the philosophy behind the fly, and how we've developed this offense, and how to teach and implement the fly sweep. We've had tremendous success running the fly offense. I think it's extremely effective in running the football. 2002 season, we were the number 2 team in Division III running football at average 350 yards per game. We averaged 37 points a game, which is in the top 20 in the nation. And also we're in the top 10 in the nation in total offense. So I think the success of the offense speaks for itself. One of the things I think about an offense is that guys stand the test of time. The Northwest Conference is extremely competitive, great coaches, and they make us better like any good league. You know, in the last 8 years, we've broken 31 school records. We've averaged over 5 yards a carry every single season. And we've also been ranked in the top 10 in the nation in rushing for the last 4 years. And so we're going to try to talk here today about how that's come about and how we've developed that. Okay, what I hated to see as a defensive coordinator, to me, is where the offense started. Is what the things that I did not like to see as we prepared for teams. And the first thing I didn't like to see was motion. Any team that did a lot of motion caused us problems, and we had to make some type of adjustment. I didn't really like teams that shifted either. You know, teams that came out in one formation and shifted to another tended to cause us a little bit of grief. Really did not like teams that went no huddle. Teams that went no huddle when I coached defense just caused us, again, to shift our game plan a little bit. We couldn't hold hands in the huddle and chant and yell, and didn't like that so much. The thing I really didn't like as a defensive coordinator were teams that were deceptive. Teams that hid the football and made us have to rely on our keys to be effective. When the kids see the ball, we find it much easier to get to it as opposed to people hiding the football on us. The last thing, we have two other things we didn't like. I really wasn't fond of unbalanced formations. It was, you know, took you 3 or 4 weeks to get lined up properly, and then you had to teach everybody to move over a gap. And that, you know, again, in high school, some kids can do it and some kids couldn't. And I even think in college sometimes it causes people a little bit of grief in the unbalanced formations. And then finally, players in space. You know, one-on-one tackling in space is the hardest thing in football, in my opinion, for a defensive back or a linebacker. Our open field tackling drills tend to be quite negative. And anytime I started feeling really good about myself as a defensive coach, we just watched the open field tackling drills for a while, and I usually wasn't as confident. In football, you have 4 gaps. You have the A gap, you have the B gap, you have the C gap, and you have the D gap. A gap between the guard and center, B gap between the guard and tackle, C gap between the tight end and tackle, and then the D gap can be, you know, is between the tight end and the sideline. What we found is the D gap is much bigger than the A gap. The A gap can be 2 feet, 3 feet, same with the B gap. But sometimes the D gap, if you're on the hash mark, can be 20, 30 yards wide. And so we found that the money play for us and what was hardest to defend was teams getting out into the D gap, and that's what we want to talk about. A little bit about the history of the fly offense. I did not invent the fly offense. I think what I'll take credit for is developing it into a system and sticking with it for the past 20 years. It was really started by Gene Beck, to the best of my knowledge, in Delano, California. Phil Moss and Roger Sugimoto introduced it to me at North Monterey County High School. And at that time, it was just a series of 4 plays out of 1 formation. And then through 14 years as a high school head coach at small schools, medium schools, big schools, city schools, rural schools, different places I was at, we just kind of developed this and tried to keep the basic idea of the deception, getting people into space, and those things that I talked about previously. A lot of teams have picked this up with a lot of success, and certain parts of the country it's been a very, very popular offense. Some of the reasons that we run the fly offense, and why we like it, is there's several reasons. First reason, there's no book on it. Now we have a tape series, evidently, but there is no book. And as a result, people don't really understand what we're trying to do, and there are no rules, and we don't feel bound by any any conventional ideas about it. It's pretty free form, and we're able to do what we want to do. I think it's adaptable to any offensive scheme. Run and shoot, power, trap, wing tee. I don't think you have to abandon what you're already doing. I think you can continue to run your stuff and mix some of this fly offense in, but it doesn't take a specific type of personnel. It's adaptable. The third thing is adaptable to different personnel. In our time here at Willamette University, our leading rusher has been our quarterback, it's been our tailback, it's been our fullback, it's been our sweeper. Conversely, we've had just about every position on offense be the leading receiver at one time or another. So if you have a quarterback that can run, great. If you don't, that's fine. If you have a tailback that you want to feature, you can. If you don't, that's fine. And we just found that, especially in high school, but even here in college, you don't always have exactly the prototype. Every year you have a guy at a certain position that's better than others. And so I think this is very good because personnel is not, does not drive the engine. The system drives the engine, and you can adapt it to your personnel. Another thing I like about it is it's not a precision offense. It's very forgiving. A lot of people, a lot of offenses, your boys got to be just right. I mean, you got to be just the right splits. You got to be just the right spacing. This is very forgiving, and most of the time when you watch film, you're making mistakes, and so we get into that real well. Next point, it doesn't demand a lot from your offensive linemen to be successful. It's hard to find really good offensive linemen at any level. And for us to dominate the offensive line when I was in high school or even here at Willamette, sometimes we have better guys than others. But again, it is not dependent on domination on the line of scrimmage. In fact, in many of the plays, you have the ability to not block several people and get away with it. Another point that I like about the offense that I've found has been extremely important is that our opponents only have 1 week to prepare. I know as a defensive coach, if we're doing a plan that works against several opponents, it certainly helps us. If we have to stop, scrap it, and do something different, for example, against an option team, that gives them the advantage. And I think we have the advantage because people have a hard time getting ready for us in a week. Next point is it's team-oriented. Even your stars have to fake. And I think that's a character builder. I think our guys don't get the ball a ton. We try to spread it out. Obviously, the better players are going to get it each game, but a good game for us is going to have the ball spread around fairly evenly between the sweeper and the two setbacks and the quarterbacks. And faking is a lost art in football. It used to be real important. You watch the old black and white films in the 50s, and everybody was running the single wing, and the fakes were really important. As we've gone more to a spread offense, it's not as important. And we really stress the faking, and I think it helps build team. I think it really helps build that whole idea that everybody's got to do something on every play for it to be successful. Next point is the reason I like it is the offense has a progression. You know, it goes from A to B, from B to C, and so forth. I think every good offense, every good system has a progression. And as a play caller, you need a progression in order to make good calls as the bullets are flying each and every game. Next point is I think it really helps all parts of the passing game. If you're a team that wants to throw quite a bit and have the ability to throw quite a bit, I think it really helps because it simplifies your pass protection. It simplifies the looks you're going to get because people really have to, if you run it properly, are going to have to stop your best play, which is usually going to be the sweep play. And then I think I've touched on this already, but deception is the lost art of football. And the ability to be deceitful and to hide the football is a great equalizer. And it equalizes your talent with other people's talent, especially if you feel that your talent doesn't match up with other people in your league. Deception can certainly help even the playing field. We also like to create an image with the fly offense. We want people talking about it. We want people getting fired up about the fly, and we want other people kind of getting focused on it. It really is just a play, as you'll find out, but it certainly creates an image. We've gone into stadiums where everybody's had a fly swatter in their hand of our opponents, and people get so focused on stopping the fly offense that sometimes they forget just the basic fundamentals. I think good teams have an image, and the good teams really hang their hat on something they think they're good at. I think there's certain hallmarks of championship offenses. I think every offense, despite what your scheme is, has got a certain level of standards, I guess. So the first thing you want to do is you want to eliminate turnovers. One of the best things we did last year was not turn the ball over. We cut our turnovers over by 50%, or cut them down. And as a result, we won more football games. So good offenses, championship offenses, eliminate turnovers. Not a high-risk type of an offense. And I think our risk level is quite low as opposed to turning the ball over. Next thing you want to do is you want to eliminate sacks. You want to protect the quarterback. If you can keep your quarterback healthy, if you can eliminate the hits on him, you got a chance to be a good football team. And so that's the next thing that I think good offenses do. I think the good offenses at any level have the ability to be balanced. Run, pass, balance, be balanced on the field, going to the short side or wide side. I think that those have the ability to be balanced. I don't think it's necessary to be balanced, but I think it's necessary to have the ability to be balanced if you need to. I think good offenses stop the swarm. As a defensive coach, you want to teach your team to swarm to the football. You want to teach them to get to the ball. That's what all good defensive coaches do. And there's nothing more demoralizing to an offense than to have a defense just swarm into your ball carrier and get 5 or 6, 7 guys getting a good shot on your back. Offenses, such as the option or our offense and the fly offense, tend to keep people spread out. And as a result, it gives your backs a chance to break one tackle and have a big play and cut down on the swarm. I think another thing that offenses do, championship offenses, they get the ball into space. And the idea that, you don't have to run people over to get to the end zone, but people have space, and to me, space is defined as you're able to get the football and nobody can touch you for a couple of yards. That's space, and good offenses can do that. And then another thing I think good offenses do is they can score points against any defensive system. When I first started coaching offense, there are certain defenses I feared or I didn't like going against or I wasn't as good going against. And I think a good system is quite confident no matter what the front is, what the defensive scheme is, what the secondary is. There isn't a defense out there that you don't look forward to going against. The last thing I think good offenses do is they create the defense. They create a vanilla defense. They make the defense play base. They limit what the defense can do. Every defensive coach talks about dictating what the offense does. Every good offensive coach talks about dictating what the defense does. And so I think the good offenses make defenses change. They make defenses play what we call vanilla here at Willamette University. Okay, the next thing I want to do, shift gears, is talk about philosophically what are we trying to do. Okay, I think there's a philosophy of what we want to get done here at Willamette. The first thing is we want deception. Our motto is even a dead man can fake. You can prop a dead guy up like they did in Beau Geste and in the movie, and he can fake you out if he's holding a gun or something. Anybody can fake. We tell kids you may not be an All-American when you get the ball, but everybody can be an All-American faker. The second thing of our philosophy is we really believe in it's difficult to key one player. If you key one guy, it's going to be very difficult for you to stop everything. There's certain offenses I find it very simple as a defensive coordinator to try to stop one guy. We may not stop him, but we all know who we have to stop. And in this case, we think it's very difficult to key on just one offensive player. We think it's very difficult. We want to make it, our philosophy is we want you to struggle to simulate what we do in practice. We want your scout team to struggle. We want you to see us for the first time on Saturday afternoon when we play you. And that's, again, part of our philosophy. We also believe that we have in a logical progression. We teach our kids that there's a progression to the offense, and we make no bones about the fact that you have to stop our sweep play in order to stop us as a football team. And if you stop the sweep, we think there's something else that we can go to. The next thing in our philosophy is we call it simplicity within complexity. And what that means is this. It's simple, we always want to keep it simple, stupid, the old KISS philosophy. I don't really buy that, because if it's simple for our kids, it's simple for your kids. I want it to be very, very difficult for your players. I want it to be very, very simple for ours. We want simplicity within complexity, and I think that's best achieved when you got few plays and a lot of formations. And that's probably how we try to achieve that. And then another part of our philosophy is fun. We want this to be a fun deal for the guys. We want our guys to have a real buy into this, and they love seeing guys get faked out. They love seeing guys break free. And the more they get into it, the more fun they have, and the more that helps us be successful. So that's a little bit about our philosophy. The sweep is a key play to the offense, and the sweep is really what makes the offense go, and the sweep really is what is unique about the fly offense. Otherwise, we're just a split back offense or an offset eye offense or a one back offense if you watched us. But what makes us unique is our ability and our willingness to run the sweep anytime, anywhere, out of any formation. And so we'll talk quite a bit now about the sweep play. To me, it's the hallmark of the fly offense. It's what makes the fly offense dangerous. It's what makes it fast. It's what makes it different when you watch it than any other offense. The second thing about the sweep is there's many ways to run this play from many different formations. Again, going back to what I talked about, simplicity within complexity, or excuse me, I think it's the other way around, complexity within simplicity. I don't know, we're going to check the slide out. But the whole idea that we're going to run this play out of a lot of different formations, a lot of different ways. Over the years, when we first started running the sweep, we started out just handing the ball off, and we'd time it, we'd hand the ball to the sweeper, and we'd run outside, and we had a lot of success with it. Over the years, we've really watched the play and studied how defenses try to stop us, and we've come up with a system of what we call the stoplight approach. We run the sweep 3 different ways. We run it in a green light, which means go. Yellow light means we might stop, we might go. And red light means we're going to stop or cut it up. And so for us, we're going to run the sweep 3 different ways and try to attack the defense in a variety of ways with the same play and with our kids knowing exactly which way the play is going to go. So let's talk a little bit about the sweep play. The first play that we teach our kids is what we call the yellow light sweep. And the yellow light sweep is the read part of it. And the read comes down to this. What we're going to do is we're going to read the tight end's block. Tight end is going to try and reach the defensive end. If we reach the defensive end, the fullback and the sweeper are going to go outside. If we don't reach the defensive end, then we're going to cut it up, and the fullback and the sweeper are going to go inside. And our terminology that we use is if you see the butt, cut it up. If we see the tight end's butt at the fullback, he's going to cut it up. If in doubt or when in doubt, take it out. So when the fullback is in doubt, he is going to move, he is going to take that thing outside until he gets a read. The problem with this play that usually breaks us down is the tight end not giving us a read. The tight end not declaring he's either reached him or pushing him out, depending on the defender's technique. The great thing about this play is that really you don't have to block too many other defensive linemen. We consider the 5 technique on the tackle to be a problem technique, and so we have to address that. We can either drive block him, we can scoop block him, we can handle him in any variety of ways. But our base way of doing it, as I have drawn up here on the slide, is for everybody on the line to get to level 2. And that's what we think makes this offense so dangerous, is we can leave the defensive linemen and let them run and try and chase our sweeper. We have a variety of fakes that come in behind that with the quarterback and the remaining back if you are in 2 backs. We find that when we run this out of 2 back sets, the other back is the deceptor. If we run it out of a 1 back set, the quarterback has to become the deceptor. And I think that's critical. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. In the evolution of the offense, that's what we kind of ran it read sweep. We didn't know we ran it read sweep. We just kind of told the guys to run. And then we saw that sometimes certain defenses, especially read teams, we couldn't get outside, and there were giant gaps that if we had a mechanism to read it, we could cut it up. And then we just found that sometimes the defenses would outflank us, especially when they put a guy on the 7 technique on the tight end and a guy outside shade of the tight end. We found it was very difficult to reach both those guys with our tackle and our tight end. So we decided that we would start to call what we called a red light sweep, or we would cut it up. And there's several ways to do that. The base way we do it is we block down with the tight end, have the tackle kick out the Sam linebacker or the loose 9 technique, and then the fullback will take off as if it's going to be a green light sweep, and he'll cut it up, as will the sweeper. And that's very important that people understand that I think you can go full speed and make the cut. The reason we talk about red light or green light or yellow light is we want our sweeper to know what speed he has to make the cut at. Too many times, for too many years, we had guys slipping, trying to make the cut. They weren't sure where it was or when it was going to happen. And the analogy I use all the time is if we tell a kid to run down a hallway at a hotel and somebody's going to open the door, and as soon as you see the door open, make the cut, they usually will run past the door, or they'll slip when they make the cut, or they don't run very fast because they don't want to overrun it. If you tell a kid to run down the hall going full speed and turn into room 331, he'll make that cut in a heartbeat. And that's our thinking on the sweep. We want them to be very clear when they're going to make the cut and how they're going to make the cut, and in some cases even why they're going to make the cut, although I'm not sure that that's absolutely necessary. One other thing about the red light sweep is that it can be run out of, again, a variety of formations, and I'll talk about that on the board in just a minute. The next sweep we'll talk about is the green light sweep. And what we want to do with the green light sweep is we want to get outside. And it's designed to go outside. It's designed to, the only reason we would not go outside is if the forced player, the number 2 defender, comes across the line of scrimmage in a box technique and we have to go deeper than we normally would to get around him. In that case, we would get underneath him and then get back outside. But it is a speed play. We are running as hard and fast as we can, and it is probably the play that's, probably is kind of the signature play of the offense, is giving it to a fast guy and getting outside. Okay, and so we call that green light sweep. And those are the 3 sweeps that we run. And again, I think where we get into a lot of, where it becomes a lot of fun is all the different formations and ways that you can run this thing. Next thing I want to talk about is how we set up our formations and decide how we're going to run the sweep to different, in different formations. I think in football there's really 4 edges in any formation. So the first thing we look at is this edge up here, which is just a tight end. And what we are going to do is we want to design a way that we can run the red, the yellow, and the green sweep to that edge. It doesn't matter if you're no back, trips, slot, double tight. It doesn't really matter. All we're concerned about is from here over and what we can do with the with that particular formation. Week to week, game by game, different defenses, that may be a great edge. It may be an edge we don't like to run that week. But we're going to design a way to run a red light, a green light, and a yellow light sweep out of each one of these. Second edge we worry about is a tight end and a wide receiver. Okay, difference here is the corner we can move the corner out with the receiver, and we can go out of 1 back, with no back, 2 back, however we want to do that. And I think that becomes a critical deal with the offense. The third edge we worry about is the edge that has no tight end, just 1 wide receiver. And again, we're going to design a red light sweep, a way to cut it up, and a green light sweep, could be even a yellow light sweep if that's what we decided we wanted to do. Probably wouldn't be as common, but as possible. And the fourth edge that we worry about would be 2 wide receivers. And again, we're going to design different sweeps out of that edge. And again, I don't care if it's an unbalanced set with 2 backs in the backfield, or if it's kind of a doubles spread offense. Whatever offense that you like, that edge is going to appear at some point. And there's pros and cons to each one of these. But if you look at formations, all of them have a particular edge. We also have a 5th and a 6th edge where we get unbalanced or severely unbalanced. But really in our game planning, those are the 4 edges that we're most concerned about. All right, next thing I'm going to talk about is the structure of how we teach the offense. And I'll go to this box here. When we talk about the offense, I don't like talking about plays. And the reason I don't like talking about plays is as an assistant coach, the head coach always told us we had too many plays. And as a coach, you always worry about too many plays. And so what we've tried to do is we've gone away from plays, and we teach the 3 different positions in a different manner. So for example, our backs don't learn plays, they learn paths. And we have designed every way that a back can go, we have given that term a name. I think it's a great exercise for you to do with your own offense. We can show you our names, But you know, those are ours. You know, whatever works for you. But a back has paths, and we always teach paths. Linemen have rules, and those are the traditional on, inside, closest linebacker, on, outside, man, cross block, trap, first man pass to the center. I think that's how I learned it, pretty typical. And then receivers have concepts. And there's really three concepts for our receiver. Either the play is coming at me, the play is going away from me, or the play is coming up the middle. And we try to teach those three concepts so that the receivers don't have to spend a lot of time on blocking rules. Run blocking for them is fairly simple. Obviously, play two is critical blocking because the play is coming to me. But obviously, play away, there's a lot of things we can do with those concepts. So we come up with concepts for the receivers. The reason I think this is important is not so much how we do it, but how teams teach their offense. So for example, we can change a blocking rule, keep the paths the same, tell the receiver where the ball's going, and in a sense it's a new play, although nobody's had to really learn anything different. Or we can go ahead and change the back's path, marry it to a blocking concept or rules, and again, the concept for the receiver, he just needs to know where the ball is going. Is it up the middle? Is it outside? Is it to me? And as a result, he's got a chance to, we can be very, very multiple with a very minimum amount of teaching. In teaching the fly sweep, I'm going to talk about the terminology that we use in teaching the sweeper, or what we call the sweeper, the guy in motion. We want to teach how do you get this thing? How do you time it up? We will have a drill tape that'll have this also, and you can see our players actually performing this. But just to break it down into teachable components, here's how we do it. The first thing we talk about is the approach. Where does the guy line up? How does he approach the quarterback? And the points we want to make on the approach is, I don't think it matters if it's a 3-step approach or a 30-step approach. There's pros and cons to all of them. I prefer a longer approach because it gives us a longer time to see defenses move, and it gives us our linemen a longer time to see if people are trying to time the blitzes. And so we prefer a longer approach, although some teams do it with a very, very short couple steps approach. Again, I don't think there's anything magical about it. What is magical is the speed and the aiming point. We tell the sweeper to aim 1 yard behind the quarterback. Okay? That's his job. It could be half a yard, could be a little bit more, but generally a yard is where we're at. Again, it's a fairly forgiving skill. And the other thing we tell them is we want them to start out, we want the approach to look the same all the time. We'd like that to look the same every single play, no matter if he's getting the ball or not getting the ball. We tell our sweepers it's a simple position. Either you get the ball or you don't, but it always looks the same. And so don't have to be the brightest guy in the world, particularly to play that position. If they hand it to you, run. If they don't, pretend like you're running. The other thing about the approach is the speed. We talk about it starting out about half speed and building gradually towards full speed. The better you get, the more we want to get the guy hitting at full speed. But really, you don't want him going full speed. We'd like to, you know, if a kid knows how to drive a stick shift, he could be in 4th gear. You'd like to have a 5th gear once he gets the ball. I don't think it's so much important how fast you're going before you get the ball. I think it's really important how fast you go after you get the ball. So we want to work our way up. So we talk about water skiing, how you kind of start out and you get going gradually faster. If your kids don't water ski, talk about cars, stick shifts, and then come up with your own analogy. That's all I got. Okay? So that's what we call the approach. All right? The second thing we talk about is the mesh. To us, the mesh is the quarterback timing the motion man and the quarterback turning and handing the football off. Okay? Again, I don't look very athletic and was never a quarterback. And again, this will be on our drill tape, but just in just talking about it, what we want is we want the quarterback to look at the motion guy. We're not trying to fool anybody. Everybody knows what we're doing. We've already said our sweep's our best play, so we're not trying to hide it. Okay? Early on with young quarterbacks, we just have them stare them down. As they get better at it, they can kind of start to look away, and catch them again. Okay? The better they get dictates it. To start, look at them. Okay? And it's his job to time it. The mistake that sweepers make on the approach is they start to slow down because they think the quarterback's going to miss them. And it's not his job. It's not the sweeper's job to time the mesh. We tell the sweeper, if we miss the mesh, then we'll fire the quarterback. It's not your fault. Okay? The problem is they start to chop their steps and slow down, and it defeats the purpose of the play. We tell the quarterback we want him to turn 180 degrees so that his back is to the defense, and the step should be anywhere from 5 to 6 to 10, 12 inches. I used to say a yard until I actually tried to do it, and then you can't. That was a clinic talk. It's usually about 6 to 8 yards. We want to turn enough that we can clear the line of scrimmage and guards can make their pulls. Okay? I don't overcoach that. I used to overcoach it. What I do now is I tell the quarterbacks what my vision is, what I want, and then they go get it done. Okay? We've had some quarterbacks that when they turn are very, very low and hunched over. We've had some that have been straight-legged and stood straight up. I don't really care. What I care about is that ball snap properly as they turn, and it's their job to time it up. Okay? So we tell them the ball has a rubber band from the football to your belly button. The ball's seated. We turn. If I'm standing here waiting, I'm early. If I'm reaching, I'm late. And so it's fairly easy to coach. If they're standing there, they're early. If they're reaching, they're late. And we just want to turn it and mesh. That's why we call it a mesh. We want just 180 degrees and that guy going 100 miles an hour, and they meet. Okay? The third part about teaching the sweep is what we call the slide step. I think this is critical. A lot of people put this play in because they have a 4.4 40 guy and they want him to run around the corner. But the reality is if I'm running around the corner and I have to stop and make a 90-degree turn, I'm no longer running a 4.4, I'm about a 5.6. And then you've just defeated the purpose of the play. What we've found to be a critical component of this is when we get the football, and that's part of the mesh that I didn't mention is getting the football. When we get the football, we want to move our body one body width away from the line of scrimmage, okay? And again, we'll show you this on the drill tape, but we want to move one body width away. We talk about rollerblading, ice skating, wherever part of the country you're from, but and you just start out by teaching them to walk and then slide step, walk and then slide step. Move your body one body width. That enables them to continue to run extremely fast, but it also gives them the ability to round the corner faster. And it's similar to base running in baseball. You want to take that wide turn, and that way you can get to second base a lot faster. It's the same thing. You can't just run straight lines, and that's what your guys will do if you don't teach them to slide step. So when we get the football, we teach them to slide step. The fourth part of this deal is what we call the catch. And the catch is where we actually have a running back here. And we have the running back take off on that angle, and it's this guy's job to catch him. And by him catching him, we mean we want him to get on the outside hip, and we want to touch, if this is him running, those are his two arms, we want him to be able to touch with his inside arm the outside hip of the lead back. Okay? And we call that catch. And whether or not there's a lead back or not on the play, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, we want to teach them to either catch the back or catch a ghost back. And what that does is it puts them in good position to be on the outside hip. The outside hip. So catch is simply slide step, run, try and catch, if we're going this way, try and catch the lead back. And really when we come around the corner, we talk about being like the Thunderbirds or the Blue Angels. We want to be wingtip to wingtip. We want them screaming around like two F-16s. We don't want the fullback or the lead back getting there 3 or 4 or 5 yards ahead. We want them being as close together as possible. And again, that's something that we've really developed over the years and we think has really enabled us to have a really good play, is that ability to catch that lead back. And then finally, the last thing we teach on our sweep, again, doesn't matter if it's red light, yellow light, green light, the catch is always going to be wingtip to wingtip. And then the last thing we teach them is set up the block. So as we're running, as the defensive back comes up, we want to teach them to either fake out, go in, or fake in, go out. And we talk about field spacing, meaning Where are you on the field? If you're going to the wide side of the field, you certainly can cut up and then get out again. Or going into the boundary, you probably want to fake like you're going to go outside and then try to cut it back. But the whole idea of setting up the block. Too many times we had sweepers come around the corner. They weren't aware of what was going on. They were just so happy to have the ball, and they didn't have a plan. We talk about having a plan. And the plan is you set up the blocker, and then you are able to move downfield. And the last thing that sweeper's got to do is beat one guy. And we'll talk about that later on in our sweep tapes. Again, that's just a brief overview of the fly offense, philosophically why we run it, what we think is important, the things that we think stress the defense, and we certainly hope that helps you. Thank you very much. Okay, my name is Mark Speckman. I'm the head football coach at Willamette University in Salem, Oregon. We're a Division III football team playing the Northwest Conference. Prior to being at Willamette University, I taught or coached and taught high school football in California at a variety of different schools for 17 years. At every school I've been at, we've run the fly offense, and the backbone of the fly offense is the sweep play. And so what I want to do in this tape is talk a little bit about the sweep and how we teach it. We've run the sweep 3 different ways. We run a red light sweep, a yellow light sweep, and a green light sweep. And the color of the sweep means where the sweeper is going to make his cut. What I want to do in this tape is talk a little bit about the blocking assignments and the backfield actions, and then I'll show you with film of players running the drills, and then we'll finish the tape with a few clips of games to put the whole thing together. So the first thing I want to talk about is the green light sweep. And the green light sweep for us can be run to several different edges. In the previous video, I talked about the different edges that we run at Willamette University. We want to run the sweep to 4 different edges. An edge that can have a tight end and a wide receiver, 1 wide receiver, or 2 wide receivers. And it can be 1 back or 2 back. It doesn't really matter. A couple of edges that I've shown, this is an edge that has just a wide receiver. And so for us, if we ran the sweep and we wanted to go outside, we would give the blocking assignments the following. As I said again earlier in the previous tape, our receivers have concepts, our line has rules, and our backs have paths. So what we would teach the concept to the receiver is play coming to him. His base way of running it would be to block number 2. So we'd have him come and crack on 2. We would have him run a green light sweep path, and he would block number 1. So we would call that blocking assignment 21, or green sweep 21. 21 tells each person who he's blocking on the perimeter. For us on the line, our rules on the green light sweep go something like this. His rule is on outside. We're going to try and reach block him. And then the next guy, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run a track, and we can go ahead and there's a variety of things you can do here depending on his ability, but you can have him go downfield and block. You can have him reach. Again, we look at how big he is, and if the guy can run downfield, we might let him go try to get a safety. If he can't, we'll probably have him just stay backside. Let's talk about this in a little bit of detail now. The key thing here, again, we talk about approach, mesh, slide step, catch, and we're going to try to get outside. Obviously, the number 2 defender is the key defender to block. A couple things you need to know about on this. If he goes ahead and decides that he's going to walk up and hit it, then he's going to go ahead, and we would go ahead and just switch assignments, and instead of it being a 21, it would become a 12. You could just call sweep 12 from the get-go, depending on how you want to block the perimeter. Key block is with this tackle on this 5 technique. And on the tracking, I think there's a couple things we look for. First thing that we really look for is we want to be able to get to the upfield triangle of the linebacker. We don't want to chase the linebacker. If the linebacker runs, we do not want to chase him. And so on a track, we have what we call a 5-yard rule. We don't want our lineman going downfield more than 5 yards. If I go and try to get to the play side linebacker and he's gone, then we simply tell our lineman to look back, because if you miss one linebacker, there's always another one coming. And we're going to look back away from the play, and we want to make sure that we pick off anybody that's running to the football. Okay? So that goes for the guards and the centers on this play, is we want to leave level 1 and we want to scoop up to level 2 and pick people off. A lot of people look at this and say, well, the 3 technique can make the play, and the fact is he can't. If you mesh it properly and you time it properly, he's going to have to run a long, long way to make that tackle. And so that's our day 1 base way of blocking this play. Again, your imagination can take you any direction you want on the blocking schemes, because there's a lot of ways to block it, but that's been a very good way. In the tracking system, as you'll see on the clips we put on later, it's just important that those linemen pick off the pursuit, so that if your back does cut back, there isn't a level 2 linebacker or defensive lineman making the play. Let's move on to another edge. If you look at this edge, we have 2 wide receivers out there. And so for us, again, the wide receiver could be tight. That would be a different edge, a tight end wide receiver edge. But for this particular edge, what we would do is we would give the widest receiver the first digit. So in this case, we might go 221. What we're going to do is we're going to double team number 2 with the 2 receivers. We're going to get the lead back on number 1. And again, it goes back to that approach with the wide receiver, the sweeper, the mesh, the slide, the catch. And again, we're going to try and run outside. You could go, so that's one way to run it. Another way to run it would be to go 142. Okay, and again, depending, maybe when you release your receivers, they'll back off. That's what you're hoping happens. You could go 4